So now, if the mashpia is going to teach the makabel, the Talmud, the makabel, who has not yet developed his sechel to receive this kind of oil sechel that the mashpia has. Let's take this away from what we're discussing right now, so we'll have a more direct illustration. The oil, yeah.
So that was be clear. In the whole example you're giving with the person and not being the dog eating the shuk.
Now what?
The whole example that you're giving about a person being a person not eating the shuk, you said this is the or sechel. You, I guess, specify like exactly which element of that is the or sechel.
All right. I'll fill it in. Okay. We have the example. We're talking about eating, right?
Hello?
Yeah.
So, yesterday when the Fabringen spoke about two things, or mentioned quickly. One was what song represents, what it means to sing. And the second was what it means that the rain is falling from the sky. And both of these things qualify as Eir Sechel, or they're... How do
Yes.
they... Yes?
Yes.
Okay, and these are both things which we're saying the makabel actually has to be sort of fit to receive.
Yes.
And the mashpia's job is to make him fit to receive them.
Yes.
Not just to say them to him, but to somehow prepare him to hear these kinds of things.
Right.
Okay.
So there are the Sechel HaMashpia is on a totally different level than what Sechel HaMakabel. The Makabel also has Sechel. In other words, in simple terms, there are things in the Makabel that he recognizes exclusively because he's a Bar Sechel. For example, on the lowest level, a person who does not appreciate being clad, being covered, and you can go out in public without clothes, you're not going to attempt to talk to him about Sechel. He doesn't have any Sechel experience. His mom is like an animal. So the makabel has his level of seichel. For example, surely in a quote, generally speaking, from a very young age, a child knows to eat at a table. And he senses the difference. And you not eat with your hands, you eat with a fork and spoon. Which is something which a child is recognizes, and that's the seichel of the child is relates to that at a very early stage. Everybody has experienced this. I mean, but I've seen my own children as they were growing up, moms that were still in their high chair, couldn't feed themselves, and when they had to feed themselves, they would take the food with their hands because they couldn't pick it up by the spoon, put it into a spoon and feed himself with the spoon. Because to take the food with the hand in the mouth, it's not right. Doesn't sit right. This is seichel. Where does this Sechel come from? Where does this Sechel come from? This Sechel comes from the nefesh of the Rotzen Anoineg of the person. In Rotzen Anoineg, a person recognizes what a human being is. Namely, I'm not going to talk about a human being, but what is the recognition? That there is an element of self-respect. In other words, it's not just a question of doing one thing or another, but it really there is an overall ruchnische Ayin in human life. A person, a child, there's a certain stage of children they don't sense the principle of having clothes on, but at a certain point he can't dare go out without clothes, and it's not because it's cold or hot, because it is disrespectful. He's embarrassed. What's embarrassment about? Embarrassment is that he is not in the stage, and he's not living up to what he is. What is this what he is? Where did he get that from? This is part of the gift of the neshama that the Rebbe gave. That gift of the neshama has depth way beyond anything that we can even fathom to draw completely. There's no limit to that. This is actually, as we say all the time, it actually represents, it has a godly principle in it. A godly principle means it's not even a created thing. It's above world. But from that emanate in the slow dosages this Ayin at different stages. Let me explain my words here. To eat with a spoon or to eat with your hands from the perspective of assuaging your hunger makes no difference whatsoever. In other words, there's some kind of an aura, some kind of a spiritual element that is not definable by world requirements. Simple physical, it's not definable by that. That is the message that this is contained in the nefesh Adam. Nefesh Adam is not just that which gives him life, physical life. Nefesh Adam gives him a completely different perspective of what the world is about. One principle that he gives him, this is important to me, one principle that he gives him, that there is something about this world, there's a purpose, there's a meaning to this. This is in the Nefesh Adam, and again, it emanates, and we become conscious of it in different levels and different dosages through the Sechel. As for example, I'm going off a little bit, but we have to capture this. A dog runs and encounters a house. And it can't go through the wall of the house, it has to go around. What does the dog recognize at that moment? A house or a wall? Does it make a difference to him whether it's a plain wall or some kind of a brick blocking his way, or it's a house? A human being, because of the gift of his neshama, because of Sechel, because he sees things from a different level, from the level of their real meaning, he immediately immediately recognize this is a house, this is not a wall. There's much more that can be elaborated, but just want to give us a sense of what we mean by oyer sechel. This is an oyer element coming from the nefesh, because in the world itself it makes absolutely no difference. The practical perspective, you're walking, there is a wall, there's a house, makes no difference. It blocks you walking, you have to go around it or break it.
When does it change from Oyneg and Rutzen to Sechel?
Sorry?
Or the Sechel comes from Oyneg and Rutzen. So when does it change from Oyneg and Rutzen and becomes Oyneg Sechel?
When it becomes identifiable, conscious.
Sorry, what was the question that you just answered?
What is the transition from Oyneg and Rutzen into Sechel?
Can I ask you, what is the transition or the difference between Oyer Sechel and Sechel? Or are they synonymous?
They're synonymous.
Uh-huh.
There's a Chtzonis HaSeichel which is lacking of Oyer, but essentially the Seichel is Oyer Seichel.
And this Oyer is coming from the Rutzen and Oyneg in the Nefesh.
Right. To put it in very simple terms, the reason that a human being, that I want, my Seichel tells me how to eat and this is the proper way to eat, the reason I want to eat in the proper way is because I want to be a human being. Then practically speaking, there's no consequence, one way or the other.
And the Talmud, the Mushpa, the Makabel is lacking this?
Mushpa's Makabel is lacking the ability to understand the Oyer Seichel at the level of the mashpia.
Uh-huh.
And mashpia has the Oyer Seichel in a totally different level than the Makabel. For example, I'm going to show you on this point. It is it is common, even a child, that a child would be embarrassed in front of other people, but privately, it doesn't bother him. The Oyer Seichel of the mashpia is it makes no difference. Why? Why does it not make a difference? Okay, I'm going to go straight up to a different realm completely. The real source, the real significance of Oyer Seichel is not the Koved Ha'odom. It's not the honor of the human being. It is when human being recognizes that he represents the Creator. That he is the presence of the Creator all the time. It makes absolute difference what the situation is. And that he cannot tolerate not to be conscious of. This sense, this is a mashpia level. This is a child does not have this sense, even though this is certainly the source of it. So the job of the mashpia is to mashpia him his sechel, whatever level the sechel, it's his sechel. His sechel is should not be erech to the sechel of the makabel. So since it's should be erech to the sechel of the makabel, this is what we're learning about the tzimtzum. How is he going to bring the makabel in and show him this sechel? This sechel to the makabel. So the way this can happen is As I said, number one, first he has to be with Samsung his Sechel. In other words, it's as if he does not sense his own Sechel at all. Kilo his kilo. And you say his Sechel is based on the fact that there is a godly presence, a godly spirit in him, and a godly purpose in the human being, and in every one of his activities. He's mitzamtzum. Now he goes down to the worldly level of a human being. He's not acting on the basis of Sechel, on the basis of his Sechel. He's acting on the simple human level, maybe on the Mekabel's level. And then, from there, he has to start building up to the point where he can, from that perspective, from the Mekabel, understand his Sechel. And then he is able to transmit it to the Mekabel, his Sechel. But he can talk to the Mekabel because he speaks from his vantage point.
So, in the context of the table discussion that we always have, to be mitzamtzem the Sechel the mashpia means, while not leaving the reality of what this table means, coming to the level of, okay, it's a table, it's a board and four legs.
Well, it doesn't have to go down to that. It's a convenience.
The convenience.
It's a practical convenience. We pointed out there are many, many different stages that we already discussed. And that is the fact that the human being appreciates a practical convenience is also a human quality. Otherwise, why don't you just lie on the floor and eat?
The lower level.
It's a lower level, but still, it's a human element.
So the mashpia is coming down to see this table from the perspective of somebody who can only appreciate that much about the table.
Right. The main thing is that he said this is what he's called over here. The pnimis of the oil Sechel has been completely withdrawn, concealed, and what remains is the chitzonis. What is the chitzonis? It's convenient. The chitzonis of the table is inconvenience, not malchus, not self-respect. These things don't exist.
Convenience. And then the mashpia meets the Talmud at that level.
From that point, he can talk to him. Yes.
Since we spoke about the other Sechel, many times was asked the question why the Alter Rebbe start from Chabad, not from Kesef. I don't remember what the answer was.
That Kesef, the kreiches of Oinig Rotzen are not part of the kreiches hagluyim. They're not part of functioning kreiches. The person does not think with them. It's not part of the functioning structure.
So it's not part of a voida, as to say.
Right.
One of the implications of all of this is that a person really can never be mashpia on himself. He can never elevate himself. Is that true?
Well, it's true and not true. But to answer your question in fully, it's like this. To be mashpia on himself through a function up to a seichel process, no, it's impossible. But there's another form of hashpah, another form of growth, and it's called mesiras nefesh. In mesiras nefesh manner, when he just delves into the truth as he knows it, even though he cannot really identify with it, then it's possible to grow that way. But that's an extremely difficult thing. The Gemara says the story with Elazar ben Dordaya. Everybody knows the story of Elazar ben Dordaya, he was a Baal Aveira, from whatever it is, and then he was touched very deeply to do tshuva, and his tshuva was, he couldn't even come back from it. He expired in this tshuva, which means that he realized something that he had no means of grasping it. All right.
Based on this question, based on what we said until now, is the distinction between the makabel and the mashpia is that, to quote what the Rosh said, that the makabel wants to be a human being, like a child. He wants to be a human being. So he's aware of this trait as a natural phenomenon. The mashpia realizes once the effect that a human being has this innate desire to be human, and that it comes from because he represents Hashem. That's
yes. Okay. Well, let me. Now that we have this example, just want to make a very general point. This is like an example of the difference. The principle that we always say is that the Sechel of mashpia is shaloi be'erech to Sechel of makabel. There are many different levels in this difference. I give an example, illustration. That the mashpia Sechel is something which recognizes the human being, not from a human perspective, not from a world human perspective, but from a super world perspective. That's what the mashpia is. But he cannot talk to the makabel from that vantage point. The Sechel HaMakabel is not ready for this. And if he talks to him that way, he says, okay, it's a nice academic concept. It's something that he can relate to. It's not his Sechel. Therefore, he has to find within his own Sechel, he has to find the Sechel HaMakabel. How do I present, how is this Ayin, the Sechel HaMashpia, how can that be translated at the level of the Makabel? This is the process of tzimtzum. That as a result of this tzimtzum, the Sechel HaMakabel surfaces, which is this chitzonius of the Sechel HaMashpia. But in the mashpia itself, the chitzonius he's not even aware of it. But by this tzimtzum, he becomes aware of the chitzonius, and this is what Sechel HaMakabel surfaces. Okay, the chitzonius of Sechel HaMashpia, let's say at this level, the chitzonius is, my child, you have to eat by the table, not walking around. This is the chitzonius. But this is not all that he is going to be mashpia, telling him that he should not eat standing up. You have to explain to him what's behind it. He has to explain it to him at this level, Sechel HaMakabel. So he has to give him pnimius of that, but the pnimius of the chitzonius. In order to give him the pnimius of that, he has to go back to his Sechel, to the pnimius of his Sechel, and sense what's behind this. This is called the chozer v'heir. That after the tzimtzum there is chozer v'heir.
And what would Hitaka say to the child in that first step of chozer v'heir? You don't walk around while you're eating because...
No, because it's not part of this whole
So
process.
what does he say to him?
Well, it depends which child and so forth, but he will give him certain illustrations. For example, when you sleep, you want your own bed or you want somebody else to sleep with you? You want you know the siblings all kicking around in the same bed. No, I want my own bed. Why? Because this is my place. This is my place. And the same thing, the Rebbe had insisted that every child have his own siddur, have his own chumash, have his own bencherel, his own little piece of the bookshelf. So the child already has a sense that there is something unique about what a person is.
Something unique about what?
Unique about what a human being is.
Uh-huh.
On the basis of that, he tells him that the same thing when it comes to eating, for example, you have to have your place. You don't eat just in a market. All right, let's come back to here.
I just asked one question. This tzimtzum process that the mashpia undergoes.
I'm sorry?
Tzimtzum process that the mashpia conceals his own sechel. That's like a whole process? I mean, in other words, actually where the sechel hamakabel surfaces, that's not an instantaneous thing necessarily? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong question, but
no, it is. It is a process. It's not. It's definitely not an instantaneous thing. Before he can go into this tzimtzum, he has to first identify with the makabel. Who am I talking to? Who am I trying to teach this to? Once he identifies with the makabel, then he says, well, how am I going to give this to him? I have to find him within this thought. But he is not privy to this thing. This is where the tzimtzum starts. Bottom line, what is the principle of this Sechel? That's called chitzonis.
And the chayzer v'heir comes after the sechel makabel has been identified?
Right.
Or that's, we said in another share that the chayzer v'heir is the impetus, this is the inspiration. In other words, like to teach a child AyinBase, you have the whole Torah, that,
This is what inspires the mashpia to be mashpia. But the chayzer v'heir comes after that he identified the Sechel HaMakabel.
Then he actually goes after his own sechel.
Then he goes back to his own Sechel, right? And he goes back to the Etzem Sechel and says, okay, and this is really a worthy cause.
What's a worthy cause? The makabel?
To teach this particular little thing to the makabel.
Not now, but I'm interested at some point. The father, the husband, is the mashpia of the family. How this actually applies in a voida of the family and the family. Not now.
It's all included. It's all included.
The meaning of tzimtzum. No matter what type of circumstances, your family or single or...
Well, since I'm going to be absent next to the rest of the week, or much of the week,
the challenge is...
I'll answer your question, because it's a worthy question to deal with.
Could you restate the question, please?
Baruch, I asked how this relates to the family, because the husband and the father is the mashpia of the family.
Huh? Choshev here, he brings back the light. Choshev, repeat. He brings back the light from the source. The light. This is, in fact, in our day and age, not only is of utmost importance, but this is something which the mashpia, the husband and the father, needs to go through a whole training himself to become a real husband, a real father. There has to be the clear sense in the home that every member of this home is of utmost importance, has his own status and his own place in this home. One of the most important aspect, we teach our children and so forth. We all know that whatever they learn in our home, in order for that to last through a lifetime, then they are going to be challenged in totally different things that we don't even know how to predict what they're going to be. How are they going to overcome these challenges? They could not have learned the answers to every of these questions when they were being trained or learning or growing up. It is because they have a sense of what the reality of their life is. And if they're coming out of the house, they don't feel that they're for real. They learn certain processes, certain activities, but they're not for real. They don't have an element of respect for life, respect for the world, respect for the Meibashin, respect for the Jewish life. Nothing. This is how I act, and I'm a perfect specimen. This is not going to present him preparing for the world, for life. As a matter of fact, he falls down flat. He has to realize that everything that he does, he himself is a mashpia. And all the challenges that come his way is because this is his challenge, this is his birur. By going through this, he is actually accomplishing worlds with this. I want to just make a final moment because this is something which is very, very dear to me. I've had many sessions of when a child makes a bracha properly, a big fuss should be made about that. If a child does not make a bracha properly, he should be completely ignored.
I'm sorry, the siren obscured what you just said. When he makes a bracha properly,
And it has to be big reaction to that.
Validation.
Wonderful. If he didn't do it properly, we have to try to ignore it because that's not him.
Ignoring as opposed to?
As opposed to say, how come we can make a bracha like this? What kind of bracha is this?
And by ignoring, how will they get it?
What?
And by ignoring, how will they
By ignoring, he doesn't get it. By ignoring, he is not thrown backwards. All right. Maybe go back to the Maimon here.
thank you for this long detour, Rabbi Paltiel.
Okay, as a result of the tzimtzum. Tzimtzum means that is malim, he conceals the ois sichel be'atzmai. That he himself does not have seichel. And as a result of that, nimtzo bei ha'oir seichel ha'shaychel ha'mkabel surfaces by him, the mashpia, the oir seichel that is pertinent to the makabel. Again, oir seichel means not just practical things. Oir seichel, a sense of right and wrong, a sense of the shoma sense. That's meant oir seichel. And now we're going into parentheses. That although that this concealment, or that he had completely distracted himself from his own seichel, he puts himself in a position as if he had not comprehended any seichel at all. Lo hiskel eis seichel. He is a simpleton. He's not involved in seichel. But yet still, being that he is standing, he stands in that inyan. What does it mean he stands in that inyan? Rotzoleim, it means to say like this. That the concealment is rag behagilui. That applies only to the conscious awareness. But yet still, deep down in himself, he still has that reality. This is him. Like for example, if you malim the sechel, the oy sechel, why are you supposed to eat by the table and not walk around? You malim the sechel. Does that mean that then you can go up and go and eat in the street? He can't. Why? Because this is where he stands. This is his omadrega. So his skill, he doesn't really understand why, but the sense of it still remains. The reality of it still remains. And there, as a result of this, because that he has the essence of this sechel, then he can find the oil sechel that pertains to the makabel. In other words, now he knows the principle that he's trying to give over, not all the richness that he has experienced, but the principle he wants to give over. Then he can find the oil sechel, how the makabel can relate to this principle. Okay. Hello? Yeah.
Just quickly, so, and this finding how it could be Kabo would understand it. This is not a process of going back over how he got to this.
No.
Why not? Why wouldn't that work?
If you stand on top of the Empire State Building and you've identified the entire labyrinth of streets from up there, and now you have a complete map in your mind, and then you want to tell somebody about the map, but then you have to start piece by piece. This starts here, because from that vantage point you see the whole thing. You have no questions where everything is. So then you kind of put the map away and start developing the process, this design from scratch. But you are still on top of the Empire State Building. So if you are going to develop it from that vantage point, you're not going to be able to talk to somebody who is down there. The way you're going to be talking to him is, to your right, don't you see to your right over there? It's about 100 feet to your right. He doesn't know what you're talking about.
Sounds like a GPS system.
So to develop it the way he got to it, because he was there. He was there, so he developed it in completely different way. The Makabel is not there. The Makabel is first being introduced to this. So you have to develop this Sechel. The expression is Oir min ha-choshech, not Oir min ha-oir.
Or menachor.
That's when we say that the Sechel is really real, because it can even repeat itself from a perspective. It comes about again, even when he's in a place of Cheshvan.
That's right. That's what happens is, because he's got the essence, and then he brings it back, but he brings it back with the Makabel in mind. Let's see over here. The Rebbe explains the whole thing. This Inyan that he has, the Oy Sechel Makabel, comes in a form of an Nakuda Klolis. Behel. What's a Nakuda Klolis? A general point. Behelem, which is essentially it is still concealed because he doesn't identify the Nakuda. Shehi ha-magbeles as calls ha-hashpah. This defines the hashpah be'eze eifon shetiyah. How is it going to come through? So in our discussions here, if we should kind of go away from the human thing, which is fine, but just to get an idea how this is really much more general than the human element. The Nakuda Klolis that defines the hashpah that the mashpia can give to the Talmud, to the Makabel, in terms of Torah, in terms of Torah mitzvahs, in terms of Yiddishkeit. Nakuda Klolis is that like we spoke yesterday, that really the reality that you're observing is something which was created for you. Sometimes it's there because you detected it, because you found it. Just as when you come to somebody's home and you detect tables and chairs and settings on the table and sforim, whatever you detect, These are not things that are there because they are there. They were put there. They were put there to reflect a human home. You ought to try to understand what they represent. The first principle is, like in this example, this is somebody's home. You have to respect it from that vantage, from that angle. This is Nakuda close. Then you're going to start developing it. And he says, the protim. So okay, so how do you show that respect? And how do you deal with everything? But the Nakuda Klonis is that which defines a very simple principle of the Sechel that he wants to mashpia to the Talmud. In the world, and so maybe I said I want to go back a little bit to the general thing. There's a story with the Frierdiker Rebbe and his father, the Rebbe Rashab. And they were walking in the fields. The Rashab used to go out in the fields, for health purposes. And the Rebbe was walking with him. These were very, very, very meaningful sessions. And the Rebbe was explaining something to the Frierdiker Rebbe as a child. And in the meantime, the Rebbe, as he was walking, he picked off a little blade of grass, innocently, and was playing with the piece of grass. Apparently, during the conversation that was ensuing then, was a conversation talking about recognizing that everything is a mindfulness of creation. Looking at everything from that vantage point. So then, the Rebbe, the Rashab, the father, noticed this pick of a blade of grass, and he stopped the conversation. He says, "Take a look, my son," he told my name, "how unconscious you are to what we're discussing. We're talking about that this is all the mindfulness of creation, and then nonchalantly you go and pick up a blade of grass and you play with it in between your fingers. Is that respectful to the grass?" So this is a very simple principle. I don't know if this is within the Sechel HaMashpia to every person. And to the Kabbalah it is very far. But still, I'm saying, well, this Ayin, that Mashpia, that views things from a godly perspective, and he wants to transmit it to the Makabel, he has to show, hey, this grass, it was made since the creation.
So the Nakuda HaKlolis was that everything is there since creation.
The Nakuda HaKlolis, right, the focus is not everything. The Nakuda HaKlolis is that the Meibush's presence should be recognized all the time. That's the Nakuda HaKlolis. Then how do you define it in everything? That's already something else. For that you need Cheshvan v'Hayir. But then the Shivisi Hashem l'neg d'somi, the godly presence has to be constant. How do you be constant? Be omnipresent. I'm right here in the street. The constancy presence is, that way you need Cheshvan v'Hayir to recognize that really everything has a godly presence. That's a much further, much greater development of the Ayin. But the Nakuda Klolis focus on the principle that you want to transmit.
So what was the point in bringing this story, this idea that you can have a Nakuda Klolis and it not be applied to the specific things? Or was it that the Rebbe Rashab had formulated this idea in a Nakuda and then was pointing out that Nakuda in a specific way?
No, the Nakuda Klolis, they were discussing the Nakuda Klolis. The Nakuda Klolis is that everything is from the Eibush. But then, to apply it specifically, there was something that needed to be pointed out. That pointing out was in order to bring out the principles of the Nakuda Klolis. The Nakuda Klolis defines what you are trying to transmit. But to fully bring it out, you need the Choshev V'Heir. Choshev V'Heir is not just a principle blindly, but that you see this in everything. This is what the world is about. That's made the Choshev V'Heir. Let us put it. It's later, but just want to put this. The difference between the way it is by the mashpia, the way it is in the kuda klolis in the sechel in the makab. But the mashpia, the Ayin that Eibush is everywhere, let's say, is not a discovery. The world is a discovery. He lives at the neshama level. Doesn't even know there is a world. When he needs a world, he has to turn. Oh, there is a world also. The makabel is on a totally different level. By him, which is everywhere, means everywhere in the world. So you have to begin from a different vantage point. You have to bring it down to that level. But the mashpia, the Ayin that Eibush is everywhere, is not everywhere in the world. Echod, there's nothing but. There's nothing but.
That's what the phase of the hair is, to kind
So,
of bring out that idea?
Oh, yes, to bring it that and to illuminate every part of his experience. All right, so we need some, it seems to over here, some trouble with this. All right, this will be for the day. We're flying off this evening in Cheshvan. We have Beis, tomorrow in California. It's not within walking distance, so I have to start off tonight. All right, you will. There's going